Okay. And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smudcast number 816, the genius of Fallout's music. Now, I've never covered this fellow before. He goes by the name of Simon Zinzovski. He's got about, 9,000 subs. This came out last year in January. He's got about, 61,000 views. This is a popular video. And I guess, I'm just guessing based off the thumbnail and the first frame we got, that it's going to be the original Fallout, maybe Fallout 2, I can't say. And I always enjoy either an expert or an artist or a critic's review of a particular element of a video game and why that's genius, why it's good, why it works well, why it blends together with other elements of a game, because a game is just all kinds of media slammed together. And it's interesting to hear the evolution of gaming, especially from the 90s when we had Fallout for the first time. So there's a lot to learn about in sound design or music design if you're into that thing. And I was taught by a guy in Toronto called David Logan. He used to be an LA guy in the 90s, and he moved to Toronto in the 2000s. And he was a drummer. And he was talking about ambient music and what was it called? Not On the Fly, but he was one of the first guys to do PlayStation and use the PlayStation's capabilities for streaming music. And that means something different back then. I don't know the exact definition, but it was different on the PS1. And he was using Redbook audio to emulate all these beautiful wavetable sounds that we never heard before, like real guitar. And you would take the actual guitar, you would code it into the chip and use that in the sound. And I think you might have heard that on like the first Suikoden game. They had a real Redbook audio or Realbook audio soundtrack there. So there's all kinds of dynamic and interesting things we've heard in the 90s during the PlayStation era that hopefully this guy might be aware of. I don't know. His knowledge might surpass mine. We'll find out.
Having played Fallout 1, I'm very excited to hear if he has anything new to say about the soundtrack, because amongst most of the music world in regards to video games, Fallout is one of the most ubiquitous ones. At least the original ambient soundtracks, because good luck getting away with covering the licensed stuff.
Yeah, like in terms of monetization, you will have no monetization.
Yeah, I'm just really worried about that. Every time I do any of these, not these kinds of videos, but anytime someone who doesn't know about licensing makes a video and puts background music of their favorite band or whatever the theme music they like, I have to mute it, cut it out, or use YouTube's new feature, which is to erase part of the wave form that hopefully is the music that is being cut out. I tried it once. I never got a feedback from YouTube whether it worked. I don't think it did. So, but yeah, I'm a bit concerned. You're right. That's a good point. I don't know what's going to happen.
YouTube has made their own Metallica button. If you think that you're going to get copyright struck or anything like that, Metallica button. Just mute that shit.
Oh.
YouTube has gotten better about fixing copyright issues where you can just completely cut out and mute segments of a video to basically tell the copyright holder to stick it up their ass.
I wish
it's
it
a crude solution, but a solution nonetheless. Anyways, I'm very excited for this video.
All right, 12 minutes. Here we go.
I'm curious to see what he has to say.
Get your butt in here, Dunn. We got some business to discuss.
Yeah, it's the second game.
I think that was one of the crime bosses.
That's the first quote-unquote boss you meet Gizmo in the first game.
I want to talk to you about the music in 90s Fallout games.
Oh my God.
Fallout
90s.
1 and 2 are post-nuclear role-playing games developed by Black Isle and published by Interplay in the late 90s.
I
they
love
were
that
really
he
well
cut it.
received critically and commercially, and are remembered fondly as the origins of the Fallout series. Fans of 3, 4, 76, and New Vegas often revisit these titles to see if they hold up. And when they do, they probably notice the music.
And he's definitely got some interesting visual effects.
What the?
Composed by Mark Morgan, the music of 90s Fallout adds to the vivid depiction of an irradiated California. Online, you'll hear Morgan's Fallout music praised. His OSTs have racked up millions of listens on YouTube, and some sickos even listen to 1-hour-long versions of his 3-minute pieces. In this video, I want to break down the music of classic Fallout to find out what makes it so memorable.
Dude, your green screen effect's kind of messing up there. It may have been intentional.
It's intentional because he's saying he's gonna break down the music as he's breaking up.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's some sharp editing.
Yeah,
So you can see that the green screen was a little rough in certain places, but that is very solid editing.
Yeah, so if you guys haven't listened, that was some music from Fallout 2, and it's a lot of ambient tracks with a little chord there, so there's a similar chorus line, and then it just repeats, or it goes into some other chorus line, and it comes back. That's about as musical it's going to get. The rest is all ambient stuff. There's literally just people like screaming in the background and gunshots, and you get a weird bloop bleep sound here and there, and it does add to the atmosphere. That's the whole point of atmospheric music in video games. So, but it's very linear. That you enter an area and that's it. There's not much else going on. There's nothing dynamic. There's nothing on the fly. There's no progressive music, like music leading into other music, like say when you get to a fight scene. So, it's very plain. You just have to like it. So he's going to probably get into that, why it's good.
Let's take a look at how players experience Morgan's OSTs in-game. Both games feature opening cinematics set to 40s and 50s popular music, namely Maybe by the Ink Spots and A Kiss to Build a Dream On by...
Okay, so those are the intros, right? So you load up the game, you get the Ink Spots, maybe, da-da-da-da, and you get Louis Armstrong.
I'm more favorable to I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire.
Yeah.
They did try to get that, but for some reason the license holder wasn't budging on it.
And until
even
Fallout 3.
Yeah, the Ink Spots just... Neither Bethesda, like Blackout Studios, Interplay, nor the holders of the copyright to I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire can explain exactly what went wrong. The one that needs to be the most commonly pointed finger at is like some intern at the time was handling the request and said, no, you can't have that for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's
so
kind
they
of
went
funny
with maybe.
Because every time I remember playing Fallout 2 for like loading up the game, I would just sit back, watch the intro, have a giggle, and enjoy Louis Armstrong. It was great. And this is so classic that you never really sat down and listened to the 40s or the 50s before, but here it is in a crazy game about the world blowing up. So this was a great take to put into a game for licensing, and then because the rest of the game doesn't have any of that music at all. So it's a very nice contrast between the world of desolation and then go to bed, wake up, do your day, come home in the evening, and play a game of Fallout 2, and there's Dizzy G, and he's talking about love, and you're like, oh, yeah.
It's very interesting how strong Fallout 1 and 2's aesthetics are in the 50s with just those intro pieces, because none of the other music, as you mentioned, in the 50s takes part in the soundtrack, as far as I'm aware. It's almost all ambient stuff. But you just need that one solid music piece to get you the idea that, oh, this is like the remnants of the 50s if it got fucking nuked.
Yeah, it's kind of the same feeling. I know it sounds weird when you boot up the first Mass Effect game and you're at the main menu and it's the Vigil theme, but that's before you know it's the Vigil theme. And you're like, oh, I get it now. That's why we have the music. And that's the one of the climaxes of the story. Whereas with Dizzy G, it's just immediately memorable. You're like, oh, this is great music. And then you go into this crazy desolation of a world, and you're just like, oh my God. You have to go through this to make it better for your tribe because you're on a ticking time bomb with the water chip. So, yeah, it's a one way to frame the whole narrative in that certain, or even the gameplay in that certain way that makes you think. Anyway. That's the only licensed music I can remember in these games.
The juxtaposition of romantic oldies and the dystopian future wasteland of the game world would come to characterize the musical approach of Fallout in later iterations. But in classic Fallout, we hear these licensed tracks in the intro and outro only. they are absent from the core gameplay experience. In-game, players hear ambient electronic music
I love
that
this.
reflects Fallout's desolate wasteland.
That's very clever editing. I like how he's doing this because rather than just stick yourself on screen with a face cam, he's actually incorporating himself into the game mechanics. Like, that's how NPCs talk to you in a game.
Exactly.
That's how he's portraying talking to his audience in the video.
So for anyone that has played Fallout 1 or 2, and if you haven't fixed that right now, get the improved, modded versions of Fallout 1 and 2, and have a great time, and get your ass kicked by Deathclaws and whatnot. But all the clayface animations for the characters look so, they look so good. It's so goofy. And him just shoving his camera in there is, that's great stuff.
Yeah. If nothing else, at least go listen to Sergeant Dornan's rant when he catches you out of uniform.
Oh, yeah. I always like Suluk because Suluk has this giant, all the faces look pretty gruesome and weird, and Suluk has this giant bone through his nose, and you're just like, oh my god, who is this crazy dude?
Oh, and by the way, Sergeant Dornan chewing out the Chosen One is canon because Cannibal Johnson mentions it in Fallout New Vegas.
Oh,
that's you getting chewed out by Sergeant Dornan is canon.
Oh, there's so many good, silly scenes in Fallout 1 and 2. It's just like, oh, yeah, okay. Anyway.
For each key location in the game, there's a track, typically 3 to 4 minutes in length, that will play on repeat as the player explores that area. There is no combat variant or reactivity at all to player input. The music only changes based on your current location and only pauses during dialogue. In modern titles, you'll commonly see musical underscore accompanied by Atmos, short for atmospheric sounds.
Okay, I don't think that's a thing. It's just sounds. It's just sound design. You could argue that 2D games didn't have that unless you
I think he's talking about how it's separated in the game files or maybe the OST where it's when you put it into your PC, like atmospheric sound track, whatever number.
Yeah, let's say you have an attack and you hit the wall and it's a bullet and the bullet goes bing, like that would be a reaction sound, but it's still just a sound effect. And Atmos, or what he's trying to get at, I think, is like when you walk across the room and there's water and you go splish, 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 something like that. But that's, again, just a sound effect. It's not atmospheric. Atmospheric sounds are just another sound file played like when the wind blows, and that's the level you're in. So if you're in a 2D level and you get closer to the window, the sound's already playing for the wind. It just gets louder as you get closer. That's what he might be referring to. And it's the same in 3D. So it's whether it's the x-axis or the xz-axis, it's the same thing in 3D. So
the only thing I can think of is Dolby Atmos, which is surround sound stuff for feeder films. Usually when the movie boots up, it has whatever company they're using for the feeder, but it has that little all around you kind of scape stuff.
Right, yeah. That's part of sound design when you're talking about Dolby. At the time, it was 4.1, and it was 3D surround sound. And for 3D games, you would actually have your landscape or your level design, and you would put an event trigger, like a fountain or an alarm. There's all these things we were testing for, bullets on the walls, because we were testing out the reactivity of the walls. Let's say you had a certain caliber of gun, so you'd have to design a bullet hole, and then you'd have a particle map to randomize it until you got really close. And then we thought, well, if we could do that, let's do matching sounds. So you have a certain gun sound or certain gun sound effects when it hits something. So there's the actual sound of the gun firing, and then there's the sound of the gun hitting the wall. There's the sound of the bullet hitting the ground and the casing hitting the ground. We were going all kinds of crazy detail just on this test, just to see what we can do. So, but those are not atmospheric sounds. Those are reactive sounds or just sound design.
The playback of wind recordings, background chatter, street noise, and other sounds that are compiled to create the ambient soundscape of any given environment.
I get what he's saying. Like, it's the sound design around you.
Yeah.
Gunshots, glass breaking, fire crackling.
I think what he's getting at is just the noise in your ear. There's the music, there's the atmospheric sounds, and then there's like the reactive sounds and the active sounds. I think that's what he's trying to categorize.
I think the gist I'm getting is that the music is doing all the heavy lifting because you clearly cannot have the separate soundbite for like atmospheric, like background talking of people. Like you have in, for example, like Crusader Kings 2, when you open any of the menus, there's like you got the music layer and then you have the background SFX layer. Like when you're going into court intrigue, you can hear people whispering amongst one another. Same in Hearts of Iron and many other games. Like you just showed, you have like the atmosphere, the soundtrack, and then like the immediate gun sound effects and other effects tied to your character. Whereas the music in Fallout 1 is like, that's the only real effects you get in regards to sound that is directly tied to your like HUD or your character. Because I might be misremembering, but I don't remember there being sound effects for you walking around. Like there's no footsteps effect, for example, any layer for that.
Not in classic Fallout, you're right, yeah. In Fallout 3, actually I would turn the radio off whenever fighting would take place because it would distract me. And you also wanted to be stealth, so it was a thing you didn't want to do. But traveling normally, yeah, you turn the radio on, listen to some old music, maybe shoot something in the distance and kill it, and that was it. Like that would be the adventure. So yeah, I don't like the categorization of what he's trying to say, but we get what he's getting at least.
Right. I'm just trying to remember because it's like been a month or two since I played Fallout 1 now. But I think, if I remember correctly, when you go into combat, the music quiets down, and then the gun sounds are the things that take priority. So I'm wondering if, like, what he's trying to describe is that the music is like the main sound layer,
right?
And then you have these other effects which play over that layer. Whereas these games have like entirely separate layers that don't overlap.
Yeah, I think so. And this is like we're talking about a 3D game like with Fallout 3 where they had all kinds more assets and resources to do those things. So it would make sense to have multiple sound layers, multiple 3D sounds, ambient sounds, but not I would never call it Atmos. I've never heard that term shortened like that. We just talk about atmospheric music and sounds for events or objects. That's about it.
Yeah, it's the only thing I can think of Atmos is Dolby, and that's for like specifically surround sound for film. I know they want to have it be referred to in other media, but I don't hear anyone that I've talked to or heard talk about video game atmosphere use this term. So that's a weird one. But otherwise, this so far very insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about. You don't have that in Fallout 1 or 2 as far as I'm aware. You don't have like this sound of you walking around plus music.
Right.
Like most games pre-2000, Fallout 1 and 2 don't have Atmos.
Oh, that's good.
This is particularly challenging, given Fallout's emphasis on long-form exploration. Without Atmos, players are asked to listen to the same 3 to 4 minute piece of music on repeat for the multiple hours they spend exploring any given game location. And over the course of the roughly 70 hours it would take a player to beat both titles, they will listen to the same hour 17 of music the entire time. It sounds
it's
like
some
the
good
approach
music,
that
not gonna
should
lie.
work. Players should get sick of the music.
Okay, but the thing with he's missing is that people are playing an action adventure game, and the levels are long, and you're exploring, and you're focused so much. And honestly, it's really tough because it's a small resolution, so your face is kind of close to the screen, and you're just sort of navigating this tiny little icon, and you have to see the bookcases there. Like some of the bookcases are behind the walls. And it's very hard to like click on objects, and then you have to hold down and then select use or observe or whatever the icon was. So you're very like close. So you're focused. So the music is kind of like in the background, and you're not really paying too much attention.
You don't really notice that it's only a 2-minute loop.
Right. This is something that I heard a lot of people complain about with MMOs, because MMOs, like Final Fantasy XIV, has some very pronounced music, especially the combat tracks. The moment those sounds play, that's where your focus is. You might be clicking your buttons, but your focus is on the loud-ass music blaring into your ear, be it rock, metallic, or classic.
I like my good combat tracks in a good RPG, but that shouldn't be the thing that takes my main focus.
Right. And it's a similar complaint I've heard from Persona games. Persona uses usually the same conclusion sound, like songs, which get very repetitive once you've been grinding a dungeon for like 100 hours. Or the 3 or so tracks you have during the actual combat get really repetitive because they want to stand out so much. Whereas with Fallout, as you said, it's ambient. Stuff you're not really paying attention to. It just adds that nice, comforting feeling of knowing where you are.
All right.
Its repetition, and generally lament the lack of any fresh beats. But this isn't what happens. People who've listened to these tracks dozens and dozens of times will seek them out on YouTube to hear them again. To understand why, we need to take a closer look at how the old school Fallout soundtracks are constructed on a musical level.
It's ambient music, buddy. What are you talking about?
He's probably going to get into that.
The most beloved tracks from old school Fallout is Metallic Monks, a piece of dark ambient music that infuses industrial sound design with abstract synthesis in an approach that lacks traditional musical characteristics, such as a rhythmic meter.
Queen?
Might as well.
A focal melodic theme.
Oh my god.
Who knows where that's from?
Although that sounds like it's been altered to be an 8-bit chip tone of Axel D, I think.
Yeah, but where's it from?
Well, he's using the Crazy Frog variant, but originally aired in Beverly Hills Cop. Beverly Hills Cop. Thank you.
You got it. That's the 80s, baby.
I almost said Police Academy, but different 80s, not different stupid 80s cop movie.
Yeah, that'd be really wild if it was. I actually remember the scene where it's being played because I remember that music so well. And Eddie Murphy trying to break into someone's house and open up his desk. Oh, jeez. And it was
so glad that when this music plays.
Toward the end of Beverly Hills Cop, where the friggin' rookie goes out of cover. LAPD, drop your weapons! And just immediately gets shot at. Okay, you've identified yourself. Do you feel better?
Yeah, it was such a memorable piece, and the actual scene is like so low. There's like nothing happening. He's just breaking into a house. Like,
Beverly Hills Cop is genuinely one of the funniest fucking movies ever made.
Oh, I remember the scene with he's walking down, I don't know which boulevard in LA, and there's those two guys wearing the leather jackets, like really flashy.
Oh, right. It's like, don't you think it's a little hot to be wearing a leather jacket this time of year?
and he just starts cracking up.
One of them right on the fucking ground and pulls out his shotgun.
And I remember him doing a comedy special. Was it the year later? And he's wearing one of those like Michael Jackson like red leather jackets. Oh, was that the 70s? I can't remember. It was like so funny. Anyway, back to the video.
Or a coherent harmonic structure.
What the?
I have no clue what that is. It sounds pretty rough, actually. But I think it's because he's warping it with that bitch's style. That one's a bitch, by the way.
By excluding these elements, the piece draws focus to texture, timbre, and immersion. Mark Morgan has stated that he approaches music from a minimal textural point of view, and that propensity is clear in his focus on layering and organic development. This approach is core to the ambient music genre as a whole. It allows the listener's focus to wander, encouraging both passive and active engagement. The result is a work that has enough nuance to afford repeated listening without becoming tedious. It is subtle enough not to intrude, but bold enough not to become irrelevant. Metallic Monks accompanies the Vault Dweller on their journey through Lost Hills, the headquarters of the Brotherhood of Steel.
Hello and welcome to the Brotherhood of Steel. May I ask your business here?
Lost Hills is an ominous, cold, and metallic underground
the dancing
bunker
skeleton.
I was about to say, I love the dancing skeletons. That's cool.
Like, he's got some very
techno-religious
sharp editing here.
military
Like, there's a
order.
lot
Metallic Monks.
that bring. I'm stuck at the images. I was gonna say that there's a lot that brings. That
doesn't even make any sense.
There's a lot, like, he's putting a lot on the screen to keep your attention, but what he's talking about is interesting. I do like what he's saying.
Well,
Oh my god, what's going on in the bottom left over there?
yeah, he's just sort of expressing his emotions about why the music's good, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine, but I want some actual technical reasons outside of
It is good music.
I mean, he seems to be getting
Definitely
on
gets
some
you
of it.
immersed.
Yeah, I just want like what exactly? Give me an actual 30-second clip that works and why it does, and tell me what this instrument is and why that's good. Like the boop woo, like that sort of sound effect. Like, why is that cool? What is that? What does that sound?
Like I was talking about, I like the Ion Zur music in Fallout 4 because it really sets the scale with their orchestral pieces, especially when it comes to the Brotherhood of Steel's arrival. Like, because it really sets the mood that they're here and they mean business.
Yeah.
It is a powerful military force coming in without a hint of subtlety.
Right, and that's all based off an event. Like with Fallout 1's music, there's no dynamics. There's no like you do something and then it builds up and opens up another piece of music that we saw with all kinds of modern games. I recently with it was League of Legends TFT Series 10, where they had like 12 kinds of different like jazz and country, and they blended them all together based off your team dynamic. That was awesome. Like, it wasn't a very good game because they changed TFT every 2 months or whatever it is. They change all the rules. But the music, they must have spent so much time and money on making like, because then they would blend one country track and some of the instruments from another style of music based off your team setup, like EDM or was it pop or some other things. There was all kinds of there's like 12 different genres. And then there was 2 versions of that. So imagine 2 versions of 12 kinds of different styles of music and then blending those all together. And it was like, wow. Like, the disco was amazing. Like, I was choosing disco just to listen to disco. It was stupid. So that's the only time I've seen recently that was so blended well together. It was all dynamic and based off your choices. This, though, all linear.
Monks presents the Brotherhood of Steel by embedding real-world samples into synthesis. These samples include an ominous wailing siren,
Like an air raid siren.
That's good. Good observation.
technological radio comms,
Yeah, this sound.
Like
and
an actual
metallic
like an
Morse
actual
code
military
playback.
broadcast. Or
The
at least the
synthetic musical
remnants of a
landscape
military
that these samples
broadcast.
function within consists of spacious pads and a static bass
Like,
drum.
he keeps changing windows. Like, that's an Apple program he's showing there.
What the?
And there's a dude on a bike for some reason.
Isn't that
Oh, that's
Biden?
Biden on the bike. Up and
The
there.
piece is through composed, meaning it doesn't have a repeating structure like a
love how
song
he keeps
does.
green
This
screening himself
nuanced
in
style
different
of development
spots.
feels unpredictable. It is like the difference between a square and a squiggly blob.
Okay, so he's trying to explain what ambient music is. It is literally noise. Noise in a positive or not a happy.
Well, I
It's
think he's onto
It
something
sets,
here.
it sets the mood of the area you're in. Like, you're gonna have a very tense ambient noise in a horror setting where you're waiting for something to jump out and grab you and try to kill you, or you're hiding from the big bad monster that wants to eat your face. That kind of ambient. Like, ambient sets the mood of the environment you're in. That's what it's for.
Right. It's just that he has to explain what ambient music is, and all he has to do is explain that it's concepts of sound and noise as opposed to like an actual track. So it's like traffic or gray noise or or white noise, whatever you want to call ambient sounds. But it's based off the world, the environment, the setting, and all these technological sounds match up with the environment you're in. So in this case, the Brotherhood of Steel, with all the old technology still being used.
But I'll give him some credit here. He's gone beyond just talking about like what atmospheric, like ambient sounds are, and trying to explain why this one is like an earworm, why people love it so much, rather than just what it is. I'm wondering if he's
all
gonna.
Those two shapes from memory, you'd get the square, but you'd have to approximate the squiggly blob. By always changing in unpredictable ways, Metallic Monks uses through composition to avoid becoming repetitive.
I like the smile.
So, let's recap. Firstly, using the techniques of ambient music and through composition, the track can be played dozens of times in a row without irritating the listener. And secondly, by incorporating real-world samples, the track develops a sense of location by essentially embedding Atmos into the tune. Many tracks across old-school Fallout take the exact same approach as Metallic Monks. In fact, here's a list of them. However, there are some notable exceptions. My Chrysalis Highwayman is a world map track, meaning it is heard less often and for less time than any of the other music in the game. It doesn't face the same constraints as the rest of the OST. It can be catchy 90s instrumental rock, unlike anything else in the game. It's one of the only songs from old school Fallout that you could actually play
to
on
show you're traveling from one point to another. It sounds like something you would hear in an 80s movie of Mad Max driving through the desert. Good traveling theme.
I never got this far.
So is that footage of him playing the guitar,
Yeah.
or did he find some random
That's
footage of somebody else?
footage. That's his footage.
My
You can see him
Chrysalis
staring
Highwayman
into the camera
isn't
with
the only
Dunn
Yeah,
and
that
the,
differs
I
from
thought it was.
Metallic
I
Monk's
wanted to be
approach.
sure. That's
So
damn good on the
these
guitar. I'll
tracks-
give him that.
Let's drill down into Khans of New California to see how these select works tackle Fallout's compositional constraints differently. As opposed to Metallic Monks, Khans of California makes use of a rhythmic meter. It has a melodic focal point, and it exists within a harmonic context. It is much more musical. However, Mark Morgan's textural approach is still apparent. These musical elements act as the bedrock of the track, while various sound sources are layered over the top and periodically removed. The same principles of layering and organic development that we discussed earlier are present here as well. This allows Khans of New California to retain ambient music's ability to be both actively and passively engaging. This addresses the problem of repeat listening. Khans just applies these ambient music techniques with more assertive energy, which is in contrast to other more desolate tracks. Khans is active, dangerous, exciting, and aggressive, whereas Radiation Storm is spooky and disquieting, but more passive.
Yeah, but you haven't really got to the point of why the music is there. It is. I was going to say he hasn't really got to the point of why the music is genius and works so well. He's just saying that it's ambient.
Yeah, he's just...
No, I'd say that he's gotten around to conclude why the music's so good. Not just because it's there and ambient. It's because you can also listen to it without, suffering what the usual consequences of ambient tracks is. If you're focusing on it, you notice that it's just a repeating like 3 or 4 notes. And you start getting annoyed. Where with the original Fallout tracks, it's overlapping a bunch of other sounds to throw you off. Whether those be like background noises or something that's in your face, like as you mentioned with the cons. where it has that horn, for example, blaring. It's not a siren, it's a horn blaring at you
Yeah,
that sets up the beat.
and that's kind of the memorable part about these games, because the resolution on these games are so low. The models, the sprites, everything's very intricate and small. So if you were to play the game without audio, which I've probably done several times just because my speakers back in the day broke a lot, and I would remember what the song was. Like, I remember the Highwayman song just because. Like, I was always traveling around, and then I would run out of, what was it, microcells or whatever the fuel source was.
I think it was microfusion cells.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, you ran out, and it just like because of the glitch in the game that the trunk would appear in every level after that. So I never technically lost my car, and I always had a huge inventory. So I would always have that song in the back of my head when I hit the map, even if you were, if you didn't have, because if you didn't have the Highwayman, you were walking around, it was dun 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 dun. So it was always it's like, oh, I don't want to hear that. I want my car back, because the car glitched, so you can never get it back, even though it was in every level. So yeah, no, some things were memorable, but there's nothing to them. Like, there's not, like, the Highwayman song is just that dun 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 near near near. That's it. That's the whole song, and it's just the guitar riff. So why does that work? Like, there's a psychological reason for it. It's because of the attention you're putting to the game is so intricate that the back of your mind is like, okay, yeah, filter that out. Even though it's stimulating, even though I'm being fed stuff in the background, I'm focused on my task, which is traveling, opening up a lock, killing someone, whatever. So there's this two-way thing going on. That's what I wanted to get into. Yes, the technical element of the guitar and why the guitar works, that would be good. I needed a little bit of that. But I wanted the actual reason why this works. Because I can remember that boop, boop, that boop sound in one of the tracks. I can remember the actual scenes of conversation. I can remember all these little crazy events that are random in Fallout 2 that came about. And the music came along with that. And I want to stress that if the music was not there, I wouldn't have played this game. So
the thing I was kind of looking for that he's probably not going to get to with the last 2 minutes of the video being conclusion is that I'd want him to tackle, like, why is it Metallic Monk fits so well with the Brotherhood? Like, combining not just the musical, like, technical aspects of music, but what it accompanies, what it is for. He relatively briefly mentioned the cons and why their theme is such a bop. But why is the cons themes are like that? Like, going to talk about, video games and what they were, like, what they present to the player and what music accompanies that group. And the theme that always comes to mind when I think about Fallout and a theme attached to a place is the Cathedral's theme with the Acolytes of the New God. The bell toll song with the monks whispering prayers. And a lot of it is just a windy sound playing over those bell tolls of the church. That track goes so well with the ominous feeling regarding the Master's whole new world, new religion.
yeah,
And it wouldn't be nearly as effective if you didn't have that predisposition towards what the church is. You wouldn't get the same feeling or the same impression if it wasn't tied to the cathedral or the Master. So that's certainly something I found missing, is that it's not just because Iron Monks is good, it's because it's tied to the Brotherhood.
right.
Which the mixture of sound effects, like Morse code, like sirens, all that stuff accompanies the whole military feel of this religious order.
Yeah, and it's very hard. Again, in the 90s, when they're putting this game together, it's very hard to get that vibe, to get that narrative to come out, and you have to do ambience in this some way. And if the whole background music is ambience, you got to include those elements, like the was it New Reno? I'm trying to remember the gangster level. I think it was Reno or New Reno. And you hear that woman moaning in the background. and then there's a bunch of gunshots. You know, it's like, oh yeah, we're in a gangster world. Of course, there's going to be those sounds, and there's no specific like location where this happens, because you could just open fire on kids and, you know, blow them away. So that's the vibe you got, because they didn't have time to put in all these, you know, walking near a door and you'll hear like the casino, or walking near a shop and they're like blowing up a car or whatever. So they have to keep it as generic as possible, with this vibe of desolation, and then throw in that little bit of environment. Where are we? We're in a gangster world. We're in a military base. We're in a waterfall. What was it? The hub. I'm trying to remember the religion they invented that they modeled after Tom Cruise. I think it was called...
the Scientologist.
Yeah, it was
the Hubologists.
The Hubologists. It was great.
But you can run into them in Fallout 4's Nuka World DLC.
Oh, you're kidding? Oh, jeez.
And they're just as crazy.
Yeah, like
I think they've been in the sun a little too long.
Yeah, like it's stuff like that where the comedy and the references, just like, I know what they're doing here. Like, I get it. Like, I get who this character. Yeah.
Especially since one of them is just blatantly Tom Cruise.
And Nicole Kidman, I think that was his wife was at the time. Yeah.
I mean, she's not a Scientologist anymore, but
yeah, I'm just saying, like, that's what they worked with at the time. Yeah.
It also helps it with the new Reno track. Is that it's so oppressive. It feels like an actual pressure is on you with how growling sounds, as opposed to many of the other tracks like Shady Sands, which is very easygoing, relatively speaking.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing about Shady Sands, is that is the goal of the game. That it's like, oh, this is a village that was created with the Gek. And you're like, oh, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to get. And you're like, really? Is this what you want? Like, they didn't allow that question to pop up, but it's funny that they do these things without thinking of the larger picture as terms of game design and going, yeah, here's your goal. You need to build this settlement. Like, really? Okay, that's weird. So I like that. I like the fact that they have all these nuances. It's cleverly written, cleverly designed, on a budget. They have to push this thing out the door. And I think this was the last game that Tim Kaine worked on before he quit from Interplay. I can't remember the story exactly.
As far as I remember, he quit partway through the creation of Fallout 2 because he was getting tired of Interplay and, by extension, Blackout Studios bullshit.
Yeah. It was sad because he really liked the game and he really liked his team, and everything was just finely tuned the way he wanted. And that was before they figured out the big bug that caused the game to crash all the time, and all these other things. Although there were so many bugs in these games, they kept crashing all the time on me.
Game design is not easy.
Yeah, well, Tim Kaine's a funny guy, so I'm sure if he had more people with him, he would have caught these problems a lot easier, and more time, of course. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
Yeah.
There we go. Good man.
Now we know how the score works, what challenges it faces, and how it overcomes those challenges. But why is it so memorable?
He looks like
why
one of the
do people
frickin'
keep coming
Z-Fans.
I have a few ideas. You hear the music all the time. It is played constantly in-game, and as such, it worms its way into your brain and stays there. The music is really good.
God.
In addressing the issues of implementation, Mark Morgan's soundtracks are very thoughtful,
It's the fucking
very
Fortnite
vivid, and
dance.
extremely enjoyable. Fallout is awesome. The games are really well written and fun, and that enjoyment rubs off on the soundtrack. Mark Morgan's score for Netscape Islands at War is also sick for a lot of the same reasons, but that game sold far less copies than Fallout. Morgan's success was in his willingness to embrace creative and technical constraints. It's a mindset we can bring to our own creative problems. Recognize the challenges for what they are, define your method, and adaptively overcome. I hope this video gave you some level of insight into the challenge.
So is it genius because it was really hard to do? Is that what he's getting at?
I'm not entirely sure, honestly.
That seems to be the conclusion, is that he took on the what's called challenges head on, and got creative, which resulted in a very creative and memorable soundtrack compared to its compatriots at the time, and even today.
It's a weird conclusion. We all know we like the music. We all know it's atmospheric, and there's little bits and bops in there we really enjoy. And technically, he went through some of them to explain, why it worked. But he's not answering the question. Because when I think of a genius, I think of a guy who's like under pressure. He's doing something that no one else can do in the time frame, and he's doing something very, very unique. I wouldn't say it's very unique.
The music is genius because particularly with the tracks he mentioned, it incorporated things outside of music into the sound, into the song itself,
right?
Which made it feel ambient to where you were.
Yeah, and that's what
that's just ambient noise.
Exactly, right. So there's nothing inherently unique about what he did, but what I remember most are the unique sounds in that ambience, like the beep boop. And
a better title would be Why the Sound Design of Fallout is Genius.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the music itself.
Yeah, the music itself is like whoop-de-doo. Like it's a bunch of chords on a... Like look at...
It's good music. No one's going to deny that.
Oh yeah, like look, I remember someone analyzed the music of the Bond theme, like dun 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 dun. Like it's just a very simple bass guitar going up and down. But why does it work? Why does it work with the theme of Bond? Because
it just sounds good, and you see Bond coming out in the scope sights, pulls out his Walter and puts it right through the scope.
It matches the tone of the way that, let's say, Sean Connery would walk across the room. And it's kind of like a metronome, like dun dun dun, and something's going to happen. It doesn't have to be flashy. Like the original Bond films weren't over the top, and he was a killer. Like he would sit in that room, like, you've had your six, like that was this very monumental scene. You're like, oh my God, he just slowly kills a guy and leaves the room. Like that's it, and the theme starts playing.
He might crack a one-liner.
Oh, there's all kind. Yeah, and there was all those things on top of what made a Bond film work, and then the music is there, and then you incorporate, let's say, the opening track to a brand new, and there was always like studios or musicians fighting for that demo to get their music submitted, and there's all this beautiful thing about the history of Bond music. So I wanted a bit more, as entertaining as this was, and all this editing was fun to watch. I wanted like more of my teacher to come in and just start talking about this specific track with this specific sound effect and what the hell it was. Like we're analyzing the opening to like Chrono Trigger, and why that was so memorable, and why that was viewed by millions and millions of people when it first came out, and why the trumpet worked.
This is going to sound very selfish. I wish there was more. That's like my takeaway from this video, is that while it's really entertaining, and I'd say it got into a lot of the technical aspects, I wish there was more. I wish he'd spend more time, maybe 20-minute videos, something like that, just to explore the various times these tracks play and the circumstances, like context in game for what the music is trying to get across.
Right.
Because with atmosphere plus sound effect, as you show with Oblivion, you're in the middle of a plane. So you're going to hear bird sounds, you're going to hear the rustling of the wind, and your own footsteps on soil. Alright, that's like self-explanatory. But with the Pixel game, what is the music trying to portray when you walk around in the Khan's hideout? Well, probably something to do with bandits. Or,
the
Great
Khans are a bunch of drug runners.
Exactly. And the music portrays that with how aggressive and in your face. It sounds like something you'd hear at a biker bar or something like that.
Yeah.
Or in a hunt. But he doesn't get into that because it's a 12-minute long video.
Yeah,
so that's like... That's my take.
I want the music to be telling a story, and I want him to explain what that story is, so we go, oh, that's why it works.
He's mostly just talked about why the sound design is good, and it is good sound design, but that's not exclusive to the music.
Right. And the only thing he could do was play the guitar with the Highwayman song, and it's like, that's right. That's just one chord riff.
But it's a great traveling song.
Right.
It is genius. It's well composed. It's just, that's the closest he got to the music being genius.
Yeah, whereas, I don't know if you've ever seen other artists or musical guys, whether they're producers. I can't remember all these people. One of them's an opera guy, so he knows like a lot about music. The other guy is like a technical dude, this black fellow. And they take like video game music and they analyze it. They go, wow, this is amazing, or wow, this is pretty good. Like Castlevania stuff and other things. That's what I was hoping for, like a little detail on this track because it's so memorable. Maybe we can watch one of those guys later and see what they think. So, but yeah, no, this is a good video. I'm okay with it. I just wanted, as Lal said, a little bit more nuance and detail to get into why one of the tracks I really liked was memorable. Why? Tell me why. Don't tell me the emotions. Don't tell me why you liked it. Give me the reason why. So, anyway, fun. Great video. Thanks, guys.
Before we conclude, let's let it play out.
Sure.
There are a couple memes, but
when they're working
like
on
3 or
video
4 in
games.
there.
And maybe when you're playing Fallout 1 and 2, you can appreciate the score in a different way. Thank you for watching.
All right. That's cool.
So I don't know if you want to look at the memes or not. There's a couple in there.
Sure, let's look at the memes. What do we got here? I am the Vault Dweller, I am the Chosen One, I am the Lone Wanderer, and I'm the Mailman?
I'm the motherfucking mailman because Fallout New Vegas, the protagonist is the courier.
You just call it the Courier, man.
But the joke with the community, with the fan base, is he's the motherfucking mailman.
Yeah, I guess. He's one of those guys that just blows the crap. Well, they all blow the crap out of everyone, so it's kind of...
Yeah. Shut the fuck up. I'm listening to all clear signal.
Yes, this one. See, I thought we'd have brought that up because that's a very, very... I think that's the military base you have to go into. Is that the one? I can't remember exactly.
Navarro, I think?
Is it Navarro, the military? Yeah.
Go to Cabin Navarro.
Yeah.
Your uniform, maggot! Where is your power armor? God, no, seriously, if you ever get the chance, look it up. It's freaking hilarious. Just to hear Sergeant Dornan chew your ass out. There's even unique dialogue if you show up in a vault suit where he thinks you're a civilian.
One of my favorites is you show up and you're being retarded. Like when
Oh, great! They sent me a moron.
If you take any of the retard options, he'll just go, "Okay, I am the big strong gate man. I keep bad people out. You are not a bad man, so you walk away now." Oh, he's great.
No, seriously, like the low intelligence speech checks in Fallout are some of the funniest things.
One of the things, if you do play Fallout 2, I don't know if they did in Fallout 1, but go for max unarmed build, and all you're doing is punching people and watching them slide across the floor until they hit a wall. Like anything. It's a bug they put in the game, and they kept it there on purpose. It's so much fun.
At that point, it's not a bug where it's like where they see it's like, okay, that's funny, we're keeping that.
Yeah, and it's because the animation of unarmed combat is very slow. So you see them the punch come in, you hear the clunk, and then the things just like trains right through the floor.
Your Honor, Fallout 1 and 2 mechanics are shit. Death.
let me
Full
knock
switch.
out
Misses.
Yeah, let me knock out an alien underground bug and have it slide across the minefield. It's just like it uses up all its turns to get back at you, and you're like, "Yep, my turn again." Bang. So yeah, there's lots of ways to play those games. They're fun, and they're classic Fallout. And this is what I sort of did during my high school years. Play Fallout 2. Yeah.
I was much more of a Doom, but
Doom was cool. I got into all the Doom clones in the 90s, but I was really into Fallout 2. And then I got it. Well, that was my favorite PC game, and then my favorite PC RPG was Planescape. So I always sort of be careful how I describe those games as being the best or my favorite, because Fallout was such a new thing. And then when you saw the isometric Black Isle style games, they had all these like Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale, and that's the thing. And then you got the Planescape, and it took me a while to get into Planescape, so I had to like come back 4 years later and go, what is this game? And I played it, and I'm like, oh my god, this is brilliant, but it's not the best PC games that was Fallout. This is my favorite RPG on the PC at the time. And this is like when the PlayStation 2 was coming out and all these other things. So, yeah, great memories, and yeah, good soundtracks for sure. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon. Have yourself a great evening.
Take care.
Goodbye, everyone. I'll remember you all in therapy.